There is a ghost haunting Captain America: Brave New World. The marketing sold you a film about Sam Wilson finally claiming the shield. And then you sit down in the theater and something feels off. The emotional beats don't belong to him. The villains aren't his villains. The history isn't his history. The person on the poster keeps getting pushed to the edges of his own story. Most of the conversation around this film was about the reshoots, the CGI, the Rotten Tomatoes score. That's all noise. Brave New World is a completely different movie wearing Captain America's skin. And that's the conversation nobody's having. So that's what this is. We're going directly into the script to find out whose movie this actually is, and how a 17-year-old forgotten cliffhanger hijacked the plot. Hi, I'm Mac from Mackinflix. Let's figure out what they did to Sam Wilson. The film went through something unusual before it reached theaters. 6 different people touched this screenplay, 5 with official writing credits, a 6th doing uncredited structural rewrites after the test screenings. Test audiences called the first cut flat and inessential. The studio panicked, pushed the release back 7 months, and sent it through 22 days of emergency reshoots. New characters were added after the main shoot had already wrapped. Giancarlo Esposito's Sidewinder, the mercenary who kicks the whole plot into motion, wasn't in the original script at all. He was written and filmed in isolation, separately from most of the main cast, which is why he floats through the film like he wandered onto the wrong set. When a film goes through that level of renovation, characters inserted, whole sections scrapped and rebuilt, what happens to the story is predictable. The pieces stop fitting together. Plot threads get introduced and quietly dropped. Characters arrive without proper setup. And what you get is a film where you can feel the construction every time a new scene starts. You can feel it in Brave New World. And once you start feeling it, you can't stop. But the production chaos is just context. What I really want to talk about is what all of that chaos did to the story itself, because that's where the real damage is. Starting with the most basic problem. Whose film is this?
Don't say it! Don't you say it! Left. Come on!
Sam Wilson is in the title. The movie is not about Sam Wilson. You know how sometimes you're watching something and you slowly realize the person on the poster isn't actually the main character? That's what happens here. The real story of Brave New World belongs to someone else entirely. Think back to The Incredible Hulk, the 2008 one with Ed Norton, the one most of us barely remember. The villain of that film was a scientist named Samuel Stearns, who got Bruce Banner's blood on him and had his intelligence supercharged. He's the mastermind here, 17 years later. The emotional heart of this film is Betty Ross, Banner's love interest from that same forgotten movie. The whole conspiracy involves Ross manipulating Stearns across those 17 years, using him as a personal think tank to advance his political career. This entire film is a sequel to The Incredible Hulk. And Bruce Banner, the one person who connects all of these people, the person whose story this actually is, appears in none of it. No mention, no explanation, nothing. There's a reason this keeps happening, and it's not purely a creative choice. Marvel Studios hasn't been able to make a standalone Hulk film for years. Universal Pictures retained the distribution rights to the character, which means whenever Marvel wants to advance Banner's story, they have to attach it to someone else's film. Ragnarok used Banner as a co-lead. She-Hulk brought back Abomination. Now Brave New World resolves 17-year-old Hulk cliffhangers inside a Captain America movie. This is a corporate workaround dressed as a sequel. The story doesn't fit because it was never designed for Sam Wilson's film. It was placed here because this was the available slot. Banner is a gamma radiation expert who actively hunts Hulk-related threats. Stearns is his greatest nemesis. Betty is his primary love interest. The entire conflict of this film belongs to Banner's story, and the screenplay quietly writes him out and puts Sam in his place. Because Sam has no personal connection to any of these people or this history, he spends the film reacting to emergencies that have nothing to do with him. He doesn't drive the plot, he responds to it. Banner would be the first responder here. He has personal history with both Stearns and Betty, and gamma radiation is his field. By leaving him out entirely, the screenplay advertises exactly how artificial its own premise is. A lead character has to be irreplaceable to their own story. Their specific history and relationships have to be the reason they solve this problem, not anyone else. Stearns makes a move, Sam reacts. Ross makes a move, Sam reacts. Tony Stark could do this job. Steve Rogers, Maria Hill, any character with a government clearance and a conscience. The film doesn't need Sam Wilson to be Sam Wilson. It just needs a body in the Captain America suit. The film also has no consistent tone. The first act is a pulpy action sequence in Oaxaca, Mexico. Light, fun, a bit campy.
Let's get this over with. I got shit to do today.
Then it becomes a paranoid political thriller about assassination attempts and shadow governments. Then it gets dour and investigative. Then a giant red monster destroys the White House lawn in broad daylight while news cameras roll. To be fair, the film is deliberately trying to blend political thriller with superhero spectacle. That ambition is real. The problem is the execution never earns the transitions. When each tonal shift feels like a gear change with no warning, the intention doesn't matter. Whether it was planned or not, it still feels like different movies fighting for the same screen. The screenplay tries for that fast, snappy dialogue style. Think The West Wing. Smart people talking at each other a mile a minute. Characters in this film respond to complex information before any human being could have processed it. Screenwriters use what they call beats, micro-pauses where a character visibly processes new information, where you can watch the weight of it land on their face before they respond. Those beats are what make dialogue feel human. They're also what allow the audience to feel the stakes alongside the character. Brave New World eliminates them entirely. Ross delivers a massive political demand, and Sam fires back instantly with a perfectly calibrated moral rebuttal. No breath taken, no moment where you can see the words even hitting him. When characters don't show you that information costs them something, the audience can't connect to what the information means. The scenes stop being dramatic exchanges and become data transfers. Bucky Barnes turning up mid-film is the clearest version of that problem. He shows up, gives Sam a pep talk, mentions he's running for Congress, and leaves. He exists purely to deliver one piece of emotional information.
It's gonna be all right, man.
Thanks, Bob.
You're doing okay, keep going, and then disappear. No dramatic function, no story consequence. A delivery mechanism in a leather jacket. All of this, the wrong mythology, the missing hero, the franchise furniture, sets up the investigation that's supposed to drive the film. And that investigation has its own problems.
That means that you're probably gonna introduce me to Ant-Man?
Nope.
The film's main plot kicks off with an assassination attempt on President Ross at the White House. A reasonable starting point for a political thriller. Someone's trying to kill the president. Sam needs to find out who. From there, you'd expect a tight investigation. Clues discovered through Sam actually figuring things out. Stakes building logically. Each answer earned through the hero's own legwork. That's not what you get. Isaiah is brainwashed at the White House.
Equitably distributed around the world.
Behind. Sit down.
Sam knows he was controlled. Joaquin checks surveillance footage and notices something blinking on all the phones before the attack. This leads to Sidewinder, who ambushes Sam with a hired hit. Sam captures Sidewinder. Joaquin traces a call on Sidewinder's phone to a facility in West Virginia. Sam and Joaquin go to the facility, find a lab, and then just...
Damn.
encounter Stearns directly. The villain is standing there, revealed at roughly the halfway point, without any of the mounting tension or earned revelation a good thriller builds toward. He escapes while Sam fights brainwashed soldiers. Sam then goes back to Sidewinder in custody and asks him to explain Stearns' plan. Sidewinder explains it. Sam goes to confront Ross. Ross explains his own backstory. Every major revelation in this film is handed to Sam through conversation. Someone tells him something, he goes somewhere new, someone tells him something else. The investigation doesn't build through Sam piecing things together. It's a series of information deliveries dressed up as plot movement. Sam is never out thinking anyone. He's just present when the next piece of exposition arrives. Think about The Fugitive. Harrison Ford plays a man wrongly convicted of murder, on the run from US Marshals, with the entire government machine against him. He has nothing. No badge, no resources, no allies. He should be hiding. And for a bit, he does hide. But then he starts hunting. He figures out who the real killer is and starts actively working toward it from a position of total disadvantage. The audience is completely with him because he's the one driving. He's choosing. Sam Wilson never chooses anything. The plot happens to him and he responds. Sam never takes the wheel. He waits for the next piece of information to arrive and then goes where it points. For a film trying to be the Winter Soldier, that's fatal. The Winter Soldier comparison keeps coming up because it gets at something bigger than pacing, something that explains why the film feels the way it does at a gut level. Every strong screenplay has what writers call a midpoint, a moment of no return, where the world of the story is permanently changed. A shattering, something that can't be undone. After the midpoint of a well-built film, the characters can't go back to who they were or where they started. The story has cost them something real. The Winter Soldier's midpoint permanently destroyed the world the story was set in. Hydra had been controlling S.H.I.E.L.D. since its founding. The entire global intelligence apparatus was built on a lie. By the time the credits rolled, that apparatus was publicly dismantled. The world Rogers woke up to at the start of that film no longer existed by the end. He'd broken something that couldn't be put back. The Dark Knight does something similar. Around its midpoint, Harvey Dent holds a press conference and publicly claims to be Batman, exposing the person the city has been protecting. The Joker gets captured, which feels like a victory, but it's his plan. From inside his cell, he triggers chaos, escapes, and by the time he's done, Rachel is dead and Harvey is destroyed. What started as a film about stopping a criminal has become something else entirely. The institutions, the heroes, the rules, all of it fractured in one stretch. The audience can feel the ground shift. Nobody is safe anymore. Brave New World's midpoint reveals a conspiracy, and then the conspiracy gets resolved, and then the world goes back to exactly where it started. Sam begins the film as Captain America, working with the government, navigating bureaucracy. He ends the film as Captain America, working with the government, navigating bureaucracy. No permanent loss. No change in who he is or how the world works. The Adamantium Treaty gets signed. Ross resigns and goes to prison. The status quo is restored. Clean. That's why, at its core, the film feels stale. An audience doesn't need to consciously understand screenplay structure to sense when a film has been designed to not matter. When nothing is broken that can't be fixed. When no cost is permanent. When the world looks exactly the same before the opening credits and after the closing ones. You feel it. The stakes were never real because the film was never allowed to pay them out. It's 2 hours of motion with no consequence. Brave New World runs under 2 hours, one of the shortest entries in the franchise, and it feels endless. When the stakes don't get higher scene by scene, when each new location feels equal in weight to the last, there's no sense of momentum. The audience isn't being pulled forward. They're watching the runtime tick down. The question driving the plot is too vague to generate urgency. Find out who's behind the conspiracy gives you no deadline, no specific cost if Sam fails, no mounting pressure. You need to feel the walls closing. This film never builds the room the walls need to close in. The mystery falls flat completely. A political thriller lives or dies on tension that builds. Brave New World generates almost none. The villain is identified at the midpoint without ceremony. The conspiracy, when fully explained by the people involved in it, is less interesting than the setup suggested. The film's second half, knowing who Stearns is, knowing Ross's secret, knowing the plan, has nowhere to go. There's no twist, no deeper layer, no revelation the film has been quietly earning. By the time the climax arrives, there's no dread behind it, just events that happened in order. The climax also happens somewhere that makes no sense. The original script ended on Celestial Island, the actual location of the adamantium, the geopolitical epicenter that drove the entire plot. Every global tension the film spent 2 acts building pointed toward that island as the destination. Then, during the reshoots, the decision was made to relocate the finale to Washington, D.C., specifically to the cherry blossom trees, where Ross used to walk with Betty. The director described it as providing greater emotional resonance. What it actually did was confirm that the geopolitical stakes were irrelevant. 2 acts of adamantium diplomacy, international war threats, and global resource conflict, resolved with a fistfight in a park. The big global story and Ross's personal story were supposed to meet in the finale. Moving the climax to serve only the personal story meant the global story was just abandoned. The film spent 2 hours promising you one thing and then quietly decided it couldn't deliver it. And a big part of why that hurts so much is that we never actually got to know the person at the center of all of it. Sam Wilson goes on this entire journey, and by the end, I still couldn't tell you who he is when he's not in the suit. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this breakdown, please hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton.
We're a Disney princess, who would you be?
Cinderella, cause she broke, homie. Let me borrow $20.
Before anything else, Anthony Mackie is not the problem. He's genuinely good in this film. Charismatic, committed, sells every scene he's in. I'd watch him in another 10 MCU films. The issue is the character the screenplay handed him, because there's just not enough there to work with. None of what follows is about Mackie. It's about what the script gave him to do. Sam Wilson has no life outside the uniform. His relationship with Joaquin Torres is purely professional. Mission briefings, training sessions, post-combat triage. His scenes with Isaiah Bradley exist either as training montages or as direct plot consequences of the assassination attempt. He has no hobbies, no romantic life, no moments that exist outside the immediate demands of the story. He's never permitted to be a human being separate from the suit. Screenwriters call the internal emotional life of a lead character their B story. The A story is the external plot. Stop the villain, save the world. The B story is who is this person when nothing is happening? What do they want that the plot isn't handing them? What are they afraid of that has nothing to do with the mission? The B story is why you care about the A story. Without it, you're watching a chess piece move across a board. The gold standard for this is Spider-Man 2. Peter Parker's A story is stopping Doc Ock from destroying New York. His B story is everything falling apart around him. His grades, his job, the girl he can't be with, his best friend who hates Spider-Man. And the film's genius is that it makes these two stories collide. Peter's real-life stress gets so bad that his powers literally start failing mid-swing. The emotional weight of the B story bleeds directly into the action of the A story. You could strip out every Doc Ock fight and still have a film about someone struggling to hold their life together. That personal story is what makes the fights mean something. Brave New World gives Sam Wilson none of that. No relationships that cost him anything, no life outside missions. No version of him that exists when the suit is off. So when he's out there fighting, there's nothing underneath it, just a guy in a suit doing plot things. Some defenders of the film argue that Sam's character was established in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so the movie doesn't need to repeat it. That argument falls apart immediately. A feature film has to work on its own. Outsourcing your lead character's entire inner life to a TV series that aired 3 years earlier is a failure of craft. The audience sitting in that theater in February 2025 includes people who never watched the show. They needed to care about Sam Wilson within the first 20 minutes of this film. The screenplay never gives them a reason to. The film does give Sam an internal conflict. It just reuses the one he already resolved. An internal conflict that's already been answered can't generate new tension. You can't create drama by re-asking a question the audience already watched get answered on a global broadcast. The drama was in the journey to that answer, and that journey is over. In The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Sam spent 6 episodes wrestling with whether he deserved to carry Steve Rogers' shield. He dealt with the weight of that legacy, with systemic racism, with his own feelings of inadequacy as a black man taking on that symbol. And in the finale, he picked it up, made a speech, accepted who he was, publicly, on a global broadcast. Brave New World hits reset on all of that. Supporting characters tell Sam,
you shouldn't even be in these situations. You're not Steve Rogers.
Sam doubts himself again. He relitigates whether he's worthy of the mantle, the exact same question from the exact same angle. The audience already watched him answer it 3 years ago. Asking it again doesn't create drama. It creates the specific frustration of watching a story ignore its own continuity. Because his internal conflict is just a repeat of his TV arc, Sam has no new emotional ground to cover. He doesn't learn or change across the 2-hour runtime. The writers never gave him a fresh problem, a new vulnerability, anything that belongs specifically to this film. The ideology problem runs underneath all of this, and it's where the film does something genuinely ugly. The Sam Wilson in Nick Spencer's 2015 comic run is a political figure. He cuts ties with S.H.I.E.L.D., he revokes his own security clearance, he fights for people the government has abandoned, border crossers, marginalized communities. He becomes so openly anti-establishment that the press dubs him Captain Anti-America. He believes the S.H.I.E.L.D. has to protect the marginalized, not the state machinery. He's an unapologetic activist who uses the symbol to challenge the institution. The film takes that character and sands him down to a compliant government asset.
It just doesn't sit right with me. Captain America, answering to the president.
He takes marching orders from Thunderbolt Ross, a man with a documented history of illegal human experimentation, hunting former allies, and decades of deep state corruption. And the screenplay positions this as the right call. Unity, compromise, work within the system. I want to be fair here, because there's a version of this that could work. Sam Wilson is a counselor by training and by instinct. His whole background is about reaching people that force alone can't reach. Empathy, mediation, the ability to talk someone down from the edge. Working from inside a broken institution, using proximity to power as leverage, that could be a genuinely interesting take on what this Captain America stands for. Steve Rogers was a government fugitive for a third of his MCU run. Maybe Sam choosing a different path means something. The film never makes that argument. Sam's closeness to Ross is just the default setting. He doesn't choose it, doesn't struggle with it, doesn't use it as a deliberate tool. The question of whether working within a flawed system is pragmatic progress or quiet surrender, that's exactly the tension this character should be living in. Brave New World never asks it. Sam is there because the plot needs him there, not because he decided to be. And to be fair, Sam does technically defy Ross at one point. He pursues the Isaiah investigation independently even after being told to stand down, because it's personal. He captures Sidewinder. He presses Ross directly when he has evidence. These moments exist, but they land with the same weight as everything else in this film, which is barely any. He does things, but none of them feel like they come from a specific internal drive. The film shows him as capable. It never shows him as someone. Most egregiously, Sam actively encourages Isaiah Bradley to attend a White House gala. The Tuskegee syphilis study was a 40-year US government experiment in which black men with syphilis were deliberately left untreated, told they were receiving care, never told the truth, observed as the disease destroyed their bodies and minds. It ran from 1932 to 1972. Isaiah Bradley's story in the MCU is a direct parallel. He was a black super soldier who was imprisoned by the US government for 30 years, experimented on, and then erased from history.
They tell us it's tetanus. They send us on missions, even though the others weren't stable. Some of us started dying off.
Denied the recognition given to Steve Rogers because the government that exploited him didn't want anyone to know he existed. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier built entire episodes around what happened to Isaiah. Sam stood in that man's home and heard what the government did to him. The audience lived through those scenes. The weight of that history is baked into both characters. And there's a specific line Isaiah says in that show that the writers of this film should have had pinned to their wall.
They will never let a black man be Captain America. And even if they did, no self-respecting black man would ever want to be.
That's the wound. That's the specific context Sam carried into this film with him. Brave New World has Sam, knowing all of this, having heard all of this, encourage Isaiah to dress up in his only suit and attend a gala at the White House, the very institution that imprisoned him, the very government that erased him. Sam frames it as progress, as an opportunity to celebrate how things have changed. The film wants this to read as healing, incremental progress, a survivor choosing to reclaim space. I can see the intention. The problem is, the film hasn't done the work to show the system actually changing, so Isaiah's presence at the White House doesn't read as healing. There's a deleted scene where Ross personally apologizes to Isaiah and asks him to stay involved. With that scene in, there's something to stand on, an apology, a conversation, a choice Isaiah consciously makes. Cut it, and Isaiah becomes a prop. The MCU establishment taking a man who survived 30 years of state abuse and putting him in a ballroom to signal that things are fine now. That's not a healing narrative. That's domestication. The film ends with Sam neatly returning to the fold of the US military-industrial complex. Rogue elements captured, status quo maintained. Nobody fundamentally accountable for anything. He lacks the moral defiance that defined Rogers, and he lacks the social activism that defined his own comic book history. Rogers dismantled S.H.I.E.L.D. when it proved rotten. Sam cleans up the mess and hands it back. Which brings me to the action, because the film has a specific problem with Sam in the fight scenes too, one that connects directly to everything we just talked about.
Need a minute?
The writers understood what they'd set up with Sam Wilson. Rob Edwards said publicly that the unique challenge of writing this character is his mortality. No super soldier serum. If you punch him, he's going to hurt. His superpower is heart. A normal human body navigating a world of gods and irradiated monsters. An underdog who has to win through intelligence and tactical creativity because he cannot absorb damage the way Steve Rogers could. Every moment where Sam is in physical danger should carry real weight because the audience knows he's breakable. The film abandons this in Act 2 and never comes back to it. During the fight with Sidewinder, Sam takes a knife to the shoulder and a pickaxe strike to the torso. He walks it off, keeps fighting, shows no lasting damage. At that point, the audience stops worrying about him. And when the audience stops worrying, you've lost the entire tension that makes an underdog story work. The superpower of heart Edwards described is a marketing concept. The screenplay gave Sam no personal stakes and nothing tying him emotionally to the outcome, so his supposed humanity has nothing to demonstrate itself through. It's an abstract idea the film declares, but never earns. The Red Hulk fight is worse. His new suit is Wakandan Vibranium, designed to absorb kinetic energy, and the film uses that to justify Sam surviving direct hits from something the size of a truck. The second the suit makes him functionally invincible, the story breaks. Steve Rogers beat Iron Man in Civil War through pure refusal. He absorbed everything Stark threw and kept moving.
I could do this all day.
You are watching what a human being can take when they believe in something enough. That endurance only works if the audience believes the punishment is real. The Vibranium suit removes that belief entirely. Sam's background is pararescue and counseling. His version of this fight should look fundamentally different from any other MCU brawl. He can't trade punches with a Hulk. What he can do is move, use the environment, draw Ross towards something meaningful, somewhere with emotional weight. Talk to the man underneath the monster. There's a version of this climax where the Vibranium suit fails early, and Sam has to improvise, not through strength, but through the specific skills that make him Sam Wilson rather than just Captain America. The film also quietly removes Red Hulk's comic heat radiation, which would have ended the fight in seconds, because it needed the fight to last. So Sam survives hits he shouldn't survive against a version of Red Hulk stripped of his most dangerous ability, in a suit doing all the heavy lifting. The whole sequence plays like a hardware demonstration for gear the audience has no reason to fear for. And the villain he's fighting has problems of his own. Actually, the villain situation in this film is a whole separate conversation, because the film can't even agree on who the villain is supposed to be.
America can and will. If I'm right about Ross, you're going to die.
The screenplay cannot decide who the actual villain is. That problem runs deeper than Stearns. Start with Stearns. He's supposed to be a hyper-intelligent mastermind who spent 17 years calculating political probabilities from a black site prison and maneuvered Thaddeus Ross all the way to the presidency of the United States. Everything he actually accomplished happened before the movie starts. You're told he engineered Ross's political ascent by predicting complex outcomes from a subterranean cell across a decade and a half, using a mind expanded by exposure to Bruce Banner's blood. You're told all of this through dialogue about things that happened long before the film started. Then you watch Stearns operate in the present, and his plans fall apart with moderate difficulty. His calculations are wrong, Sam stops him. The genius the script built in dialogue collapses the moment Stearns has to do something on screen. There's a term for this, the omniscience fallacy. It's when a writer tells you a villain is brilliant. The audience hears about the intelligence, they never actually see it. Compare that to Skyfall. The villain Silva orchestrates his own capture. He lets MI6 arrest him, lock him in a glass cell, put him under guard, specifically because that's the plan. From inside the cell, he hacks MI6's systems, triggers a prison break, and gets exactly where he needs to be, while Bond scrambles to understand what's happening. You watch that scene and you feel genuinely outmatched. The intelligence plays out in front of you, at the hero's expense. You see exactly what makes him dangerous. Stearns tells us he predicted 17 years of political outcomes from a basement. Then Sam walks up and stops him with moderate difficulty. The film wants us to believe both things simultaneously, and it doesn't work. The mind control shortcut compounds this. Every brainwashed character loses all agency the moment Stearns activates the song. The script skips the work of figuring out why these characters would genuinely act. It just forces them to. In The Winter Soldier, Bucky's conditioning was visually traumatic and carried devastating emotional weight. It meant something to every character involved, and the film spent real time on what it cost. In Brave New World, the brainwashing is just a button Stearns pushes to start an action sequence. His ultimate goal is petty personal revenge against one man. He wants to engineer a conflict between the United States and Japan to destroy Ross's political legacy. For a character operating with 17-year foresight, the massive global scale of his plan doesn't match the smallness of what he actually wants. A man who could calculate political outcomes across decades settled on start a war as the most direct path to discrediting one politician. Stearns didn't have to feel this small. The original script made him something genuinely interesting. In earlier drafts, Stearns' origin was written as a direct parallel to Isaiah Bradley's. Both men believed the government was helping them. Both were being exploited and watched without their knowledge. Both had their lives taken from them by the same institution. The difference was their response. Bradley chose to disengage from the system entirely, to withdraw and survive. Stearns chose violent retaliation. Two victims of the same government abuse, standing on opposite sides of the same wound. There was also a deleted scene where Ross attempts public accountability for what was done to Bradley. An acknowledgement, a reckoning, however inadequate. The reshoots cut all of it. Without that parallel, Stearns is just a revenge-seeking genius whose plan doesn't quite make sense. With it, he's a dark mirror to Bradley, a man the film has already asked you to care about deeply. An earlier version of the screenplay had that connection fully intact. Someone decided to remove it. What's left is a one-dimensional mastermind with a petty motivation, and no one in the film ever stops to ask why he turned out this way. Because the version of the film that answered that question no longer exists. Early merchandise leaked before the reshoot showed Stearns with his comic-accurate, oversized cranium. Then Tim Blake Nelson came back and redid nearly all of his scenes in completely new practical makeup. A pulsating, exposed brain, the full body horror treatment. The result is a character who looks like he wandered in from a much darker film, while the rest of the movie is still trying to be a grounded political thriller. Stearns is the effect, Ross is the cause. Trace back how this situation actually happened. Ross imprisoned Stearns in a black site without trial. He exploited Stern's expanded intelligence for 17 years, using him as a personal think tank, advancing his political career on the back of Stern's work. Then he broke his explicit promise to release him. Ross made Stearns into a weapon and then left him to rot, and everything Stearns does in this film is a direct consequence of that. Stearns is a monster. Ross built him. In a well-built film, the audience should always be able to answer one question: who is the story really about, and who is standing in their way? The film's real villain, the person whose choices caused all of this, is Thaddeus Ross. But because Ross is the sitting president of the United States and a character Marvel clearly wants to keep using, the screenplay refuses to hold him fully accountable. It asks you to view him as a flawed but salvageable ally for Sam. It gives him an estranged daughter and a redemption arc. It ends with him voluntarily surrendering. The real question the film is building toward, accidentally, without meaning to, is, can Ross change? Not, will Sam Wilson become the hero he was always meant to be? Not, can Sam stop a global conspiracy? The film is secretly a Ross story. Sam is the supporting character in his own movie, spending 2 hours as a passive observer, while the real emotional weight belongs to the man who caused everything. A compelling lead has to actually make things happen. Their decisions have to shape where the story goes. Because the whole conflict is rooted in Ross's past sins and Stern's revenge for what Ross did to him, Sam has nothing to drive. He just reacts to emergencies created by other people's histories. And all of this, the passive hero, the wrong villain, the missing emotional foundation, leaves the climax with nothing to stand on. Ross's entire story in this film rests on his estranged relationship with his daughter Betty. She's his motivation for seeking redemption. She's the human being underneath Red Hulk. The script keeps pointing to her as the reason he's trying to be better, and Sam talks him down during the final battle by invoking her, reminding a raging monster of walks through the cherry blossoms with a daughter who won't return his calls.
But I think you're trying to change. Now's the time to prove it to the world. Prove it to Betty.
Betty Ross appears in 2 scenes. One brief, stilted phone call where Betty apologizes for not reaching out sooner and agrees to meet, Ross doing most of the talking, the whole exchange over in under a minute. One post-climax prison visit, shot mostly in silhouette through cell bars, heavily obscured by shadow and framing. These scenes are so awkwardly constructed, clipped, distant, oddly framed, that production reporters started speculating whether Liv Tyler was physically present on set at all, or whether her scenes were put together afterward using AI voice software and stand-ins. Disney insisted she was there. Whatever happened behind the cameras, what ended up on screen is barely 2 minutes of a character the film needs you to care about deeply. Sam invokes her memory, and the film expects it to be the emotional peak of the entire movie. The physical conflict resolves on this single moment, but the emotion was never built. You can't invoke what was never established. The entire film converges on that moment, and the foundation under it simply doesn't exist.
There's a basic rule in filmmaking: show, don't tell. When a film shows you characters doing things, you experience the story. When it has characters describe what's happening in dialogue, you're just receiving a briefing. One puts you inside the story, the other puts you outside it, looking in through a window. And I think there's a reason this rule gets broken so much in MCU films right now. Because we've all been trained by a decade of Netflix shows and YouTube content where exposition gets delivered fast and direct, where the plot is explained to you because the assumption is you might not be fully paying attention. The algorithm rewards short bursts of information, shows right for people who are half watching on their phone, and slowly, without anyone deciding to, that style started bleeding into films too. Brave New World writes like that. When early audiences said they were confused, the studio added dialogue to explain what was happening. Characters sit at tables and describe the plot to each other. Stearns monologues his own plan directly. Sam's contact Dennis Dunphy explains Stearns' backstory to Sam. Information Sam is going to act on immediately, so there's no reason to be holding it back in the first place. Nobody in these scenes is learning anything. The audience is just eavesdropping on plot mechanics being read aloud. It is, to put it plainly, the verbal equivalent of getting pummeled in the face. Clarity doesn't come from narration. If the story logic isn't landing visually, describing it louder doesn't fix it. What you get is a film that somehow manages to both confuse and over-explain simultaneously. And that combination is only possible when a script was built from panic, not from a clear vision of what the story was supposed to be.
How does it feel?
Like it's someone else's.
Brave New World is what happens when a studio engineers a movie backwards.
They took the discarded parts of another franchise, handed them to a character with no personal connection to any of it, and hoped the suit would fill in the gaps. Sam Wilson spent this entire film cleaning up Bruce Banner's mess and fighting Thaddeus Ross's demons. He had no enemies of his own, no emotional stakes that belonged specifically to him. The one thing a Captain America film needs to do, make you feel what it cost this specific person to carry that shield, never happened. Let's hope next time he actually gets to be the main character. What did you think? Did you feel that same disconnect with Sam, or did the action sequences do enough to carry it for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like the video if you got something out of it, subscribe to Mackinflix so you don't miss the next video, and I'll catch you next time.